All right, so today we're really diving deep into the world of viruses.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, you know those microscopic things that we hear all about
Yeah, I know what you mean.
lately, especially.
Right.
And this deep dive is all about making you, the listener, a virus whiz.
I like it.
Yeah, so not just what they are, but why they're so interesting,
Okay.
and also what they might mean for our future.
Cool.
So get ready, because did you know that some viruses are actually beneficial?
Yeah, that's right. Thinking of viruses only as bad is kind of outdated, you know?
Yeah.
They're way more complex than most people think.
Okay, so let's get started with the basics.
Sure.
What exactly is a virus?
So a virus is like a tiny little package of genetic material, like DNA or RNA, all wrapped up in a protein coat. And the big thing is that it can't reproduce all on its own.
Okay.
It needs to hijack a living cell
Oh, wow.
to replicate and spread.
Interesting.
It's kind of like a tiny pirate taking over a ship, you know?
So it's not really alive then?
Not really, no.
More like a set of instructions that needs a cell to execute them.
Exactly. Precisely.
So how do they spread then? They seem to get around pretty easily.
Oh, they're sneaky.
Yeah.
Think about how easy it is to catch a cold going around an office or something like that.
Yeah.
That's because some of them spread through droplets when someone coughs or sneezes.
Oh, like when you can kind of see it in the air sometimes?
Yeah, exactly.
And then there's like touching stuff like doorknobs.
Yes.
Like you're always trying to avoid those germs.
Always playing defense.
Right.
And, you know, they all have their own ways of spreading these viruses.
Okay.
And some can survive for a really long time on surfaces,
Oh, wow.
just waiting for someone to touch it.
That's kind of scary.
Yeah.
So once they actually invade a cell, how do they cause problems?
So imagine this. The virus, it attaches to a cell, injects its genetic material,
Okay.
and basically reprograms that cell's machinery to make more viruses.
Like taking over the controls.
Yeah, totally. Like turning a car factory into a virus factory.
Okay, so this factory takeover, that's what causes us to get sick.
Right, right.
Okay.
That process can really damage the cell or even destroy it.
And I guess it depends on how our body responds.
It does, yeah.
Some we barely notice and others can be really bad.
Yeah, some just cause a runny nose, you know,
Right.
while others can be life-threatening.
Okay, so let's talk about our body's defense system, the immune system.
Yeah, that's a fascinating one.
How does it fight these invaders?
Well, it's pretty intricate.
Yeah.
Think of it like a really big security network.
Uh-huh.
It has all these ways to identify and neutralize viruses, like cells that can destroy infected cells,
Oh, wow.
and then special proteins that can bind to the viruses.
And what do those do?
Well, they mark them for destruction, basically.
So it's like a constant battle going on inside of us
Absolutely.
between our immune system and all these viruses.
Yeah, and it's not always perfect.
Oh, right.
Sometimes they can evade detection,
Oh, no.
or they can even mutate to become resistant.
And that's where vaccines come in, right?
Exactly.
Help our immune system out.
Yeah, vaccines are like giving your immune system a wanted poster
Okay.
so it can recognize and get rid of it really quickly.
That's a great analogy.
Thanks.
So I've always thought of viruses as the bad guys, you know,
Yeah, I know what you mean.
but are they all harmful?
Well, that's a great question.
Yeah.
And it leads us to something really exciting about viruses.
Okay.
Some of them can actually be beneficial.
Right.
It's like a whole new way of thinking about them.
Beneficial. How is that even possible?
Scientists are figuring out how to use viruses for good,
Hmm.
like in this field called oncolytic virotherapy.
Oh, wow.
They're engineering viruses to target and destroy cancer cells.
So it's like turning the enemy's weapon against them.
Yeah, exactly.
Isn't it?
Amazing. It's like using tiny guided missiles to eliminate a threat.
But how do they make sure the viruses only attack the cancer cells?
Well, it takes a deep understanding of how viruses work
Okay.
and also the specific characteristics of those cancer cells.
So it's pretty complex.
It is, yeah, but they can modify viruses in a few different ways to make it happen.
Okay.
Like they can change the virus's surface proteins so they only bind to receptors on cancer cells.
Oh, so it's like giving the virus a map or like instructions
Yeah, it's a good way to put it.
to go to the right place.
Exactly. And the best part is it can stimulate the patient's own immune system to fight the cancer.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when the virus kills cancer cells, it releases things called antigens,
Okay.
which are like red flags to alert the immune system, you know, here's the enemy.
So it's a double attack then.
Yeah.
The virus itself and then the immune system.
Exactly.
Wow, that's really amazing.
It's really promising for treating a lot of different cancers.
That's great.
Like melanoma, brain tumors, even head and neck cancers.
So hopeful.
Yeah, and it's just one example.
Wow.
We're still researching a ton of cancers.
So it's like we're really at the beginning of something big here.
We are.
Oh.
And we haven't even talked about gene therapy yet.
Oh, right. You mentioned that before.
Yeah, it uses viruses to deliver therapeutic genes into cells.
Can you explain a little more about how that works?
So gene therapy is all about correcting faulty genes, the genes that cause disease.
Okay.
And viruses are turning out to be really valuable for this.
Right.
Because of their ability to deliver genetic material into cells.
Interesting.
They're like little couriers. Yeah.
Delivering a packet.
Right, to the right address.
So we're kind of hijacking the virus's natural system then,
Yeah.
using it to our advantage.
They remove the harmful parts of the virus and replace it with good genes.
Okay.
And then they introduce it into the patient.
And what kind of diseases can this be used for?
Well, it has a ton of potential applications. It's being investigated for a lot of inherited disorders like cystic fibrosis, hemophilia, and even acquired diseases like cancer.
It's amazing. It's like we're giving our bodies a software upgrade.
That's a great way to put it.
To fight disease better.
Yeah, it's a fast-moving field.
Wow.
And we're seeing really good results.
That's great.
But of course, it's still early.
Of course, yeah.
And there are some challenges, like
Right.
making sure it's safe and effective long-term.
Right. Safety is super important with all of this.
Absolutely.
Wow, this is really incredible.
It is.
We're changing the rules of medicine, it seems like.
Yeah, and that's what makes studying viruses so fascinating,
Yeah.
They make us rethink everything we thought we knew.
Right. It's like we've been looking at only one side of the story for too long.
Yeah, there's so much more to discover about them.
So are there any other areas that are generating a lot of excitement in the field?
Oh, absolutely.
Like what?
Well, have you ever heard of bacteriophages?
Bacteriophages. That sounds familiar, but I don't really know what they are.
They're viruses that infect and kill bacteria.
Oh,
And they're everywhere, like literally everywhere.
really?
They're the most abundant biological thing on Earth.
I have no idea.
Yeah, and scientists are looking into using them to fight antibiotic-resistant bacteria.
That's really important.
It is. It's a huge threat.
So it's like fighting fire with fire,
Yeah, I guess you'd say that.
using one microbe to combat another one.
Right. So how phage therapy works is each type of bacteriophage is really specific.
Correct.
It only targets certain bacteria. So scientists have to first figure out what bacteria is causing the infection.
Right.
Then they find a phage that can kill it.
It's like a precision strike then.
Yeah, exactly.
Like very targeted.
That's one of the really cool things about it. It doesn't harm the good bacteria in our bodies.
Unlike antibiotics, which can kind of wipe everything out.
Yeah, that's a huge problem.
So it's a huge advantage then, especially with antibiotic resistance.
Exactly.
Wow. So this phage therapy has a lot of potential then
It does.
to address a really big medical problem.
Yeah, it's actually been around for a while,
Right.
It goes back to the early 1900s.
Wow.
But once antibiotics came around, people kind of forgot about it.
Oh, that's interesting.
But now with antibiotic resistance, it's making a comeback.
So are there examples of it being used successfully?
Oh, yeah. There are some amazing cases, like this one where they used a cocktail of phages
Okay.
to treat a life-threatening bacterial infection in someone's lungs.
Wow. That's incredible.
And there are trials happening all the time for all sorts of infections.
That's really exciting.
Like urinary tract infections, skin infections, things like that.
This could really be a game changer then.
It could be.
But I imagine there are still some challenges.
Oh, for sure.
Like what?
Well, one of the big ones is finding the right phage for the specific bacteria.
Oh, right. It has to be an exact match.
Yeah, it takes time, which is a problem in an emergency.
Right, of course.
And then there's the fact that bacteria can become resistant to phages, just like antibiotics.
Oh, I see.
It's like an arms race,
Right. They're constantly adapting.
Scientists are always trying to stay ahead of the game.
So we've talked about how viruses can be harmful, how they can be helpful.
Right.
What about this idea of ancient viruses?
Oh, yeah. You mean endogenous retroviruses?
Yeah, those are remnants of past infections, right?
Exactly.
Embedded in our DNA.
Like ancient fossils in our genetic code.
Wow, that's kind of mind-blowing.
It is.
What are they doing in our DNA after all this time?
Well, that's a question that's keeping scientists busy.
I bet.
But there's more and more evidence that they're not just sitting there doing nothing. They might actually have some important functions.
Really?
Yeah, they might be involved in things like immune regulation, how the placenta develops, even brain function.
So you're saying these ancient invaders might actually be helping us?
That's the idea.
Wow, that's fascinating.
It's pretty amazing how much we're learning all the time.
Do you have an example of that, of how they might be helping us?
Yeah, so there's this one called syncytin. Okay. It's thought to have been really important for the evolution of the placenta in mammals.
Really?
Yeah, so syncytin, it comes from a viral gene that allows viruses to fuse cells together. And that fusion ability, that's essential for how the placenta forms,
Oh, wow, I see.
how it connects the fetus to the mother.
So viruses can actually shape evolution.
They can in all kinds of unexpected ways.
It's incredible to think about.
The more we learn about them, the more we realize how much they've influenced life.
Okay, so to kind of wrap up what we've talked about today,
Yeah,
it seems like viruses aren't always bad.
that's right.
They can be helpful.
Yeah.
They can be part of us.
Yeah,
And they can even shape evolution.
exactly.
So what does all of this mean for how we should think about viruses?
Well, I think the old view of them as just being harmful is definitely incomplete.
Yeah, I agree.
They're way more complex than that.
Right. It seems like we're shifting from fear to curiosity.
Yeah, and that's really important if we want to use their potential for good.
To help address some of these huge challenges we face.
Exactly, like cancer, antibiotic resistance, genetic diseases, all kinds of things.
So, what do you think the future holds for virus research?
I think it's a really exciting time.
Hmm.
We're discovering so much all the time.
Yeah, it's like we've just scratched the surface.
Totally.
This deep dive has been really eye-opening.
I'm glad.
It's amazing how much we're learning
It is.
about viruses, about ourselves, about life on Earth.
Absolutely.
It's a reminder that we're all connected in ways we don't even realize.
Yeah.
Well, this wraps up our deep dive for today, but we'll be back soon to explore even more about the incredible world of viruses.
Looking forward to it.
And remember, the next time you hear the word virus, try not to just think about illness.
Right.
Think about the potential, the complexity, and the incredible power of these tiny entities.
Take care, yeah.
Until next time, stay healthy and keep on learning.
See ya. So before we were talking about giant viruses,
Right, those are pretty amazing.
really challenge what we thought we knew.
They really do.
But let's switch gears a little.
Okay.
Talk about how scientists are using viruses for good.
Yeah, that was a fascinating part of our conversation.
It is.
You mentioned oncolytic virotherapy, where they're engineering viruses
Right.
to kill cancer cells. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, it basically uses the natural ability of a virus
Okay.
to infect and kill cells.
Mm.
But instead of harming healthy cells,
Right.
these viruses are modified to target cancer cells.
So they're kind of reprogrammed
Yeah, exactly.
to only attack the bad cells.
You got it, like programming a microscopic assassin.
Wow, that's a pretty powerful image.
Yeah, and it's super precise.
So how do they make sure that happens?
Well, scientists have to really understand viral biology
Okay.
and the specific ways that cancer cells work.
Makes sense.
And there are a few ways to make it happen.
Hmm.
They can change the proteins on the virus's surface,
Okay.
so it only binds to receptors on those cancer cells.
Oh, I see.
Or they can engineer it to replicate only in certain environments.
Like the tumor environment.
Exactly.
So we're kind of giving the virus instructions then
DR?
to find its target.
Yeah, a set of instructions or like a map.
And I guess the best part is it can boost the patient's immune system too?
That's right.
Okay, tell me more about that.
So when that virus destroys a cancer cell,
Uh-huh.
it releases these things called antigens.
And what do those do?
They're like red flags for the immune system.
Okay.
So it's like, hey, here's the enemy.
So it's a double attack,
It is.
the virus itself, and then the immune system.
It's a really elegant strategy.
Wow.
It's showing a lot of promise.
And are there actual success stories using this?
Yeah, some really remarkable ones.
Oh, wow. Like what?
There's this modified herpes virus called TVEC.
Okay.
It's been approved for treating melanoma,
Really?
and in some patients, it's shrunk tumors significantly.
Wow, that's incredible.
Even complete remission in some cases
So this could be a game changer then. It really could.
for cancer treatment.
And that's just one example,
Yeah.
you know?
Wow.
There's so much research happening.
It seems like we're really just at the beginning.
We are.
We are something incredible.
And we're also looking at combining it with other therapies.
Oh, like what?
Chemo, immunotherapy, things like that.
To make them even more effective.
Exactly.
So you also mentioned gene therapy,
Right?
using viruses to deliver therapeutic genes.
It's all about fixing those faulty genes.
Right, the ones that cause disease.
Yeah, and viruses are turning out to be great for this.
And that's because they can deliver genetic material so well.
Exactly. They're like microscopic delivery trucks.
So we're taking advantage of their natural system then.
We are.
For good cause.
They remove the bad parts of the virus
Okay.
and replace it with therapeutic genes.
And then they just introduce it into the patient.
Yeah, pretty much.
And what kinds of diseases can this treat?
Well, there are a ton of potential applications.
We're looking at inherited disorders like cystic fibrosis,
Yeah.
hemophilia, even acquired diseases like cancer and heart disease.
Wow, that's a huge range.
It is.
So it's like giving our bodies a genetic boost then
You got it.
to fight disease better.
And we're seeing good results in clinical trial.
That's so promising.
It is.
But it's still early days, right?
It is. It is.
We still need to make sure it's safe in the long term.
Safety is always the top priority.
Absolutely.
But the potential is really amazing.
It really is. It's like we're rewriting the rules of medicine.
And that's what makes viruses so fascinating to study.
Yeah, I'm really seeing that now.
They really challenge us to think differently.
Okay, so we've talked about how viruses can be harmful,
Right.
how they can be helpful.
Yeah.
But what about this idea of ancient viruses?
Oh, you mean the ones embedded in our DNA?
Yeah, the endogenous retroviruses.
Those are really interesting.
They're like remnants of past infections, right?
Exactly, like finding ancient fossils in our genetic code.
What are they doing there after all this time?
Well, that's something scientists are still figuring out.
I bet.
But there's growing evidence that they might actually be doing something.
Really? I thought they were just kind of dormant.
It seems that's not the case.
So what are they doing?
They might be involved in all sorts of things.
Like what?
Immune regulation, placental development,
Oh, wow.
even brain function.
So these ancient invaders might actually be helping us.
It's a crazy thought, isn't it?
It is. Do you have an example of how they might be helping us?
Yeah, so there's this one called syncytin.
Syncytin. Okay.
Scientists think it played a key role in the evolution of the placenta.
Really?
It comes from a viral gene
Okay.
that allows viruses to fuse cells together. And that's crucial for how the placenta forms,
Oh, I see.
you know, connecting the mother and the developing fetus.
So viruses can actually shape evolution then.
They can, in all kinds of unexpected ways.
It's incredible to think about.
And the more we learn about them, the more we realize how much they've shaped life as we know it.
So to kind of sum up,
Yeah.
viruses aren't always bad.
Right.
They can be helpful.
Uh-huh.
They can be part of us.
Yeah.
And they can even shape evolution.
It's a whole new way of looking at them.
It really is. So how should we think about viruses then?
Well, I think the old view of them as just being harmful,
Right.
that's definitely not the whole story.
I agree.
They're way more complex than that.
Yeah, it seems like we're moving from a place of fear to a place of curiosity.
Yeah, and that's really important if we want to use their potential to solve problems.
Exactly, to address things like cancer, antibiotic resistance.
All sorts of challenges.
So what do you think the future holds for virus research?
Oh, I think it's a really exciting time to be in this field. There's so much we're discovering all the time.
It seems like we've only just scratched the surface.
We have.
This deep dive has been a real eye-opener.
I'm glad you've enjoyed it.
It's amazing how much we're learning about viruses, about ourselves, about life on Earth.
Absolutely.
It's a reminder that we're all connected in ways we don't even realize.
So true.
Well, that wraps up this part of our deep dive, but we'll be back soon to explore even more about the incredible world of viruses.
Looking forward to it.
And remember, the next time you hear the word virus, don't just think about illness. Think about the potential, the complexity, and the incredible power of these tiny entities.
Stay curious, everyone.
Until next time, stay healthy and keep on learning. So it's really kind of wild to think that those ancient viruses are like part of us, you know?
Like, what even is us at that point?
Right, like where's the line between self and non-self?
Exactly. It gets philosophical pretty quickly.
It really does. Like we're all just walking around with bits and pieces of different stuff.
Yeah.
All mixed up together in our DNA.
It really shows how connected everything is, you know?
Yeah, so when we look at the big picture, what does this all mean for how we think about viruses?
Well, I think it's safe to say that
Yeah.
the old idea of them as just the enemy, that's just not the whole story.
Yeah, we've seen that.
They were way more complicated.
Right, they can be bad, But they can also be good.
Exactly.
They're part of us. They can shape evolution. It's pretty amazing.
It really is. It's like we're going through a whole new way of thinking about them.
From fear to curiosity.
Well, exactly. We have to keep an open mind if we want to unlock their potential.
Yeah, to solve all sorts of problems.
Like cancer, genetic diseases, antibiotic resistance, the list goes on.
This whole deep dive has been incredible. It's really opened my eyes to
Glad.
a whole new world.
It is a whole new world down there.
We've gone from fearing viruses to seeing how they could help us. Cure diseases, fight those antibiotic-resistant bacteria.
Yeah.
Even boost our own immune systems.
It's pretty amazing, and we're just getting started.
Right? Who knows what the future holds?
There's so much more to discover.
I can't wait to see what comes next in virus research.
Me too. There's so much potential.
This deep dive has really left me feeling, I don't know, just kind of in awe
Yeah, it's humbling.
of how complex and interconnected everything is.
It really is, from the smallest virus to the largest organism.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the world of viruses.
Thanks for having me.
It's been a pleasure having you.
Of course.
And to everyone listening out there, the next time you hear the word virus, don't just think about getting sick.
Right.
Think about the potential, the complexity, the power of these tiny little things.
They're pretty incredible.
They really are. Stay curious, everyone, and keep exploring.
Always.
Until next time, stay healthy and keep on learning.